back on later in the service. I extend a special welcome to those of you who are guests or are feeling new to our community. If this is one of your first times with us this morning, I invite you to follow the link on our website, ufpc.org, and let us know how we might contact you or if you have any questions about us. Thank you for joining us today. We're pleased that our service this morning, Seeking the Wisdom in All Religions, is a lay-led service by UFPC members Jim Petosa and Lee Forrest. I invite Fiona Sankey to share a reading as Joan McDonald lights our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith. If you have a chalice or candle at home, I invite you to light it as well.
Be ours a religion. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, all good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its rituals, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. Please join me in reading our covenant as the words appear on your screen. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. Please join me in singing Spirit of Life as the words appear on your screen.
This morning, I'm going to share a tale about Anansi, the spider god. It is said that he was born from Mother Earth and Father Sky, and his tales have been told by the Ashanti people of Ghana, who brought the traditions to the Caribbean. So here is the story of Anansi, the spider, who steals the wisdom. While Anansi was already very clever, he knew that he did not have a lot of wisdom. This bothered him a great deal. One day he had a clever thought. He would hoard all the wisdom of the world in a big, large pot and keep it safe. Anansi traveled far and wide, collecting wisdom from everyone he met, and he sealed it into the big pot. Having returned home, he took the pot to a secret place where a thorny tree that was very tall, so he could hide the pot on the tallest branches. The pot was so big that Anansi could not carry it in his arms, so he tied the pot to the front of himself around his waist, and he proceeded to climb the tree. Now, can you imagine trying to climb a tree with a large pot tied around your waist? Although he tried and tried, Anansi kept sliding down the tree, and he was really getting frustrated. Now, on that particular day, Anansi's young son had followed him, and he watched as his father struggled to climb the tree, and he couldn't help but laugh. "Why don't you tie the pot to your back?" the young spider suggested. "Then you would be able to climb the tree." Anansi was so annoyed by his own failure and the realization that his child was right that he accidentally dropped the pot, spilling the wisdom everywhere. And at that very moment, a storm picked up, washed the wisdom into the river. The river took the wisdom out to the sea, where it spread all over the world, so that now there is a little bit of wisdom for everyone. Now, while Anansi chased his son home in the rain, he said to himself, "What is the use of all that wisdom if a young child still needs to put me right?"
Thank you, Joan. This is the offering. We drink from wells we did not dig, and we sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. As recipients of all we have received from those who have come before us, we are called to share our abundance with those who will come after us. As a voluntary association, our church is sustained through the gifts of the members and friends of this congregation. Your generosity makes it possible for us to maintain our building and continue to have an online presence in the community during this unusual time. Please take a moment to visit our website, ufpc.org, and click on the donate button to contribute to this morning's offering while we listen to Jim Petosa play Simple Gifts. Thank you, Jim. That was beautiful. I invite everyone to turn on your cameras as we begin this time of sharing. Each week, we take time to share our important joys and sorrows, so all of us might help carry the burden and join in the celebration. If you wish to acknowledge a sorrow or joy from your heart, I invite you to raise your hand and unmute your microphone when we call you by name. For those of you joining by phone, we'll have a moment to call on you as well.
Breathe with me the breath of life. Inhale, inspire, inspiration, ruach. Pneuma, Spiritus, Holy Spirit, the many names for breath. Breathe with me. Know that with each breath we take, in the molecules of air that were breathed by every person that ever lived. Breathe with me and breathe the breath of Jesus, of Moses, of Muhammad, of the Buddha. Breathe with me and know that we are all interdependent, that the spirit of life flows through us all. Breathe with me as we come together to do the holy work of interconnection and relationship, that our work here may be blessed. Amen.
Like so many of us, I grew up in the Roman Catholic tradition, including 18 years of education in Catholic schools and universities. There is so much to critique here, but today is not about critique. It is about the search for wisdom and brevity. So 3 concepts I hold dear from my Catholic roots are, the first one, redemption. The idea that we can be freed from that which keeps us from being who we might be. The second is forgiveness, the potency of that simple human act. In absolute generosity, it makes all good things possible. And the third is love. Quoting from St. Paul to the Corinthians, and now these 3 remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Words of wisdom, yes, when they are activated. And I went through and picked out 3 texts from 3 different Catholic thinkers to kind of exemplify how those concepts can be put in action through their words. The first is from Daniel Berrigan, the famous anti-war priest from the Vietnam era Jesuit. He said, "We have chosen to say with the gift of our liberty, the violence stops here, the death stops here, the suppression of the truth stops here, this war stops here. Redeem the times. The times are inexpressibly evil, and yet the times are inexhaustibly good, solaced by the courage and hope of many in a time of death. Some, the resistors, those who work heartily for social change, preach and embrace the truth. In the jaws of death, they proclaim the love of the brethren. We think of such people, and the stone in our breast is dissolved, and we take heart once more." The second is from Trappist monk and writer Thomas Merton. "Do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless, and even achieve no results at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. You gradually struggle less and less for an idea and more for specific people. In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything." And finally, the last thought is from Julian of Norwich, mystic and writer of the oldest English written theological text called The Revelations of Divine Love, and her astonishing words of faith: "All shall be well, all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. Thank you for this opportunity to share these thoughts with you.
Like each of you, I suffer. Much of the time, my suffering is self-imposed. With only tidbits of actual evidence, my mind fills in the gaps of what other people must be thinking or what the future holds. Like Mark Twain, I too have lived a long time and seen many terrible things, most of which never happened. It's a survival instinct, actually, this filling in the gaps with guesses. We are motivated to act in our own defense, even without all the information, like walking along a wooded trail and reacting to the sudden appearance of a snake, only to find out it was really just a twig on the ground. With COVID-19, we seem stuck in a slow motion scene of unfolding danger. We have so much uncertainty about how to respond. My imagination is conjuring up snake after snake, like I'm trying to earn points in a frequent flyer plan to the future. I depart from, oh my God, what if such and such, and land directly in Catastrophe City via the Anxiety Express. That's when I draw from the Noble Eightfold Path of Buddhism, which reminds me of the bittersweet truth that all I have is the present moment. Quite literally, there is no past or future. Both the past and future exist merely as figments of my imagination. Meditation is the training ground for remaining in the present moment. I practice in meditation, returning to my breath, the breath of this very moment, again and again. The Noble Eightfold Path also teaches me to see things as they really are, without telling myself a story about things or denying or minimizing or predicting the future. Seeing things as they actually are is practicing what Buddhism calls wise view. Wise view also asks me to discern if what I'm doing or have done in the past actually helps or if it's making matters worse. For example, I honestly can't think of a single time when putting someone in their place or teaching them a lesson ever worked out for me. It has always made matters worse. By practicing wise view, I've learned that compassion for myself and other beings solves problems much better than anger or force ever has. Wise view teaches me how to be more kind to others. If we have compassion for ourselves, Buddhist teachings assure us we will develop compassion for others too. This is to say, we will come to see the Buddha nature within ourselves and in all beings. Buddha nature is another way of saying, as Reverend Rebecca Froome says, each of us is worthy of love. Each of us is able to love. Faith in Buddha nature is faith in the first UU principle that affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including myself. The Noble Eightfold Path is also at the heart of how I live the sixth UU principle, the goal of achieving a world where there is peace, liberty, and justice for all. Wise view gives me the humility to identify what I don't know. For example, as a white person, I can't know what the weight of racial oppression feels like. Which brings me to wise action and wise speech, two more parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. And in case you're curious, in addition to wise view, speech, and action, there's also wise concentration, mindfulness, intention, effort, and livelihood. Wise speech teaches me to refrain from attempting to speak on behalf of that which I cannot know. Using the racial justice example, it teaches me to listen to people of color when they tell me the truth of their experience. And wise action prepares me to create new platforms and ways of co-creating true inclusion of and with people of color, to amplify their voices, to center Black and brown people instead of white people. We work for peace and justice out of compassion because we know what it feels like to suffer. Like each of you, I suffer. In fact, the first noble truth of Buddhism is that we all suffer. The Noble Eightfold Path teaches us to relate to suffering in ways that are helpful and don't make matters worse. To meet suffering with a little more compassion and a little more peace, giving way to a little more justice. I walk this path not only with fellow Buddhists, but also with my UFPC family. I see every act of caring and every act of social justice we take as a congregation as steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. Ours is a sacred fellowship, one we co-create together, moment by moment, to ease our own suffering and the suffering of all beings. For me, the Noble Eightfold Path shows me how to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim and Lee, for sharing such beautiful reflections with us. We're grateful to have you as part of our community. Here at UFPC, we gather in many ways for spiritual growth, to nourish connection, to put our faith into action, and to participate in the life and leadership of the congregation. You can read about our upcoming and ongoing programs in our weekly announcements and the monthly Stone Temple News. If you're not on our email list, you can connect with us at info@ufpc.org. We'll make sure to add you to our mailing list so that you can remain connected. Some upcoming highlights this week, and it was encouraging me when I went to look for what we're doing this week, that there's a lot going on still, even as we are not physically connected. All of these are hosted on Zoom and include, after this worship service, we invite you to stay on your device for a little bit longer and join us for coffee hour. It's a chance to catch up with friends and hopefully meet some new people. The writing group led by Jim Petosa will take place after the service in a breakout room from the coffee hour. Reverend Bo's Hope and Inspiration discussion group is hosted weekly on Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 3. Joan McDonald's Community Connect discussion group is hosted weekly on Friday afternoon from 2:30 to 3:30. And the UFPC Book Club will meet this Thursday, May 7th at 7 and is discussing No Common War by Luke Salisbury. Upcoming worship services include Reverend Bo Rivers' Lessons of Parenthood on May 10th and musicians Greg Greenaway and Reggie Harris, Deeper Than the Skin on May 17th. And now, as we prepare to depart this meeting, I invite you to take this moment to hold each other in your hearts. Remember to reach out and check in with each other. It'll be a while before we can gather again in person, so please make sure that no one in our community is left feeling alone. The words for our closing are by John W. Brigham. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. Go in peace, go in love, and be a blessing in the world. As we extinguish our chalice, please join us in singing Carry the Flame.